celebrations.
Come clean with us, O'Brien. Don't leave anything out.
Everything is in perfect order. Enjoy the rest of the celebration on the Queen Dido, Norman.
Raymond realized that Morgan was not who he seemed. So we set this trap together. The whole Veltro revival act.
The mountain hideout, and the coordination of the ships. All to put heat on Morgan?
But I haven't given up yet. They've left us with an ace in the hole.
Norman, stop! Morgan isn't here!
It's no use! He's gone over the edge! What the?
We need to lose him.
I don't think he's in the mood to say goodbye.
Yeah, but we're not here to bait him. What the hell just happened? Be careful!
I can't see now!
Damn, it's like a disco ball's in front of my face. Could a man be driven to infect himself?
Revenge has consumed him. Nothing human remains.
Keep your head in the game.
What the? I don't think he's in the mood to say goodbye.
Yeah, but we're not here to babysit either. Something's happening. Be careful!
I can't see now!
Like a disco ball's in front of my face. Driven to infect himself.
Revenge has consumed him. Nothing human remains.
One of them.
How the hell did he do that?
Doesn't matter. Go run up. What is he, immortal? Here it comes. Don't get distracted.
Done. Everything finished. Finally, I can die. I can die.
This is how Morgan treats his friends.
I hope he finds more comfort in death than he did in life.
The means of dispersion?
The cruise ship is equipped with a UAV. That is your delivery system.
Very well. Now show me the goods.
Bonafide T-Abyss. No vaccine. Not yet.
Yes, of course. A little bit of this could turn a city inside out.
I think we're done. I'll be on my way.
Who would have thought, yes? That the lowly terrorists would receive a helping hand from the venerable commissioner of the FBC.
As you can see, it's not likely you'll be wriggling out of this one.
I seem to have underestimated the BSAA. And perhaps you as well.
We found this in the off-limits area near Terra Grigia. We're done analyzing it, so you can have it back.
Director O'Brien, surely you understand our dilemma. Without the Terra Grigia panic, the ignorant masses would be unaware of the threat that lies before them.
Yes, you may in fact be correct.
No one has the right to detain me. The world required my guidance. It was all for the greater good.
You're only fooling yourself. You said yourself, abandon hope, all ye who enter here. But I'm not Dante, and you're not Virgilius. Morgan Lansdale, you are hereby relieved of your position as FBC Commissioner. And I'm placing you under arrest on suspicion of conspiring with Veltro in the planning and execution of the Terra Grigia panic.
With all due respect, Director O'Brien, the BSAA is making a huge mistake.
Where have I heard that before?
We can finally reveal what happened at Terra Grigia.
Yeah, but the cost was high.
The BSAA will have to be overhauled.
The storm is gone now. But how long will it last?
Almost too easy, wasn't it? The company let them take Morgan out with the trash.
Tough world.
You filed a report on this. By the way, why save Parker?
I have my reasons.
The BSAA isn't as useless as I thought. Things could really heat up.
Indeed. The fun's just getting started.
Okay, so that's the end of Resident Evil Revelations. There really wasn't a need for to show that Raymond was part of the FBC or he's part of his another organization which we don't know about because he's down with Jessica. So they were both playing a little game the whole time. So who knows if they're actually with the FBC or the BSAA? Who knows? Maybe they're still with the FBC. Maybe this whole thing was an illusion. It doesn't matter. You don't throw, that type of stuff at the end as a last minute thing unless you only have one other before. The big reveal. This person is a traitor. This person is a mole. And then, boom. Turns out to be this person isn't a traitor. It isn't a mole. Coming towards the end with the credits. The moment you do this person a traitor, this person is a mole. And it turns out that's not the case. It's a pretend, it's a blind. And this person's the traitor, this person's the mole. You already have two traitors, two moles already. So there's no need to do it a third time. Or there's no need to add more information with regards to who's double crossing who and who's fooling who. So they're trying to play it off like there's two blinds. Or there's more complication to the story. You don't do Three's Company because you make it stupid. You're gonna kill off Parker. You don't kill off Parker by throwing him into the game to be a backup dancer to Jill, and then make people believe he's dead, and then coming towards the end to show, well, Parker managed to survive. He's not dead, but they're playing it off like he's dead. When there was no example of a ground or example of a floor below him, it was just fire and everything. So it's basically saying when he fell, injured his leg. He fell through the fire and injured his leg. That's how he survived. And the two little jokers, the bald guy and the other guy, they managed to survive from a huge drop of many missiles on the facility. Because how, it doesn't show. They just happened to. So, like I said before, Parker could have easily been pulled up by Jill and Chris. They're the heroes of the story. He fell because the story demanded that he fell. And the convoluted sandwich of going back and forth with Jessica and Raymond, and then Jessica and Raymond again, and then towards the end, showed that Jessica and Raymond were still in cahoots. That was just a pretend. It's stupid. If you're gonna do it once, do it only once, then reveal the truth, and then after the truth is revealed, it reveals that that wasn't the truth. The real truth was the truth. 3 times. What they did was 4. They reveal that there was a mole in the BSAA. They didn't know who it was. Turns out it was Jessica. Turns out Raymond knew about it. That's strike 1. Then it turns out when Parker confronted her, turns out Raymond didn't die. He had on his bulletproof vest. That doesn't mean anything, but when Jessica shot him, was going to shoot Raymond again, that's another strike too, because then this time she was going to do another pretend of killing Raymond, but she had no intention of killing Raymond. She just didn't figure Parker was going to jump in the way. So she was going to do the same thing she did before again if Parker didn't jump in the way. So that's two. Now the third one, after their little pretend back and forth, Raymond and Jessica, the third one is coming towards the end, where you see them again within the restaurant. So it was a game from the very beginning, to fool the BSAA and possibly to fool the FBC as well. Who knows? Um, but that's three. That's three. That's a total of three. So when you do stuff with regards to stories like that, you do two's company and three's a crowd. So by the time they did it a third time, I checked out. So that's all I got to say with regards to that. Twice is the most you should do it. You know, once you reveal the bad guy, it turns out the bad guy isn't the bad guy. The bad guy is the good guy. And then the bad guy shows up to the end. Turns out the bad guy is actually the bad guy. That kind of gets annoying. So if you're going to show that the good guy is actually a bad guy, but turns out the good guy that's actually a bad guy is actually a bad guy, again, it has to be done in a way that it complements the story, that it's good, it's cohesive, and it's enjoyable. In this game, it wasn't. In this game, it felt like it was going up and down, and it wasn't consistent. It just felt like the whole Jessica and Raymond thing was a separate story aside from what was going on within the story of Revelations. It didn't feel like it was consistent with what was going on. It just felt like it was just thrown in there to be thrown in there. Now, I could be wrong, and maybe I'm wrong, but let's say we leave Jessica and Raymond out of the picture. So if we leave Jessica and Raymond out of the picture completely, what about the rest of the story? You know, what about Jill and Chris not being able to pull Parker up from the fall into fire? That's bad. What about the two Jokers who almost died from missiles falling on the facility to basically show it that they were going to die? Turns out they're alive. No explanation of that. That's bad as well. They didn't show that they were hiding out in a bunker, and even if they did show that they were hiding out in a bunker or something, why show it like they're going to die? Just for shock effect. You know, it's not good, it's cheap. And then there's also the factor of the third act, the back and forth between Morgan and O'Brien. Or should I say, the whole process of O'Brien putting Jill, Chris, and other BSAA agents in danger by not informing them of this. Because if the story had went in a different direction, characters like Jill and Chris could have died, the mission could have failed, FBC win, end of story. If it's just because the hero of the story is Jill and Chris, that's the only reason why the story succeeds. If it was anybody else, FBC would have won, because the game does not allow the hero and protagonist to die. They are, they have plot armor. They're immune to getting killed until the story is over. So, or the story of Resident Evil comes to an end as a franchise. So, Revelations is not the end of the franchise, so they were going to survive no matter what. So I would say Resident Evil Revelations is slightly less under the marker than Revelations 2. It really didn't hit home for me in that third act, especially since Jessica's alive and turns out Raymond's working with her. So the whole little back and forth playing games was just an illusion. and there was no meaning to it whatsoever at all, other than to fool the BSAA. But who to fool the BSAA for, and for what? Was it for fool the BSAA so Morgan could win, or fool the BSAA so they could work with different organizations like Umbrella? To be revealed later down the road, I guess. But the point is, the people who make Resident Evil aren't going to invest in Revelations like they will in the remake versions and future Resident Evil stories. So the simple fact that they decide to leave this type of ending is like they're assuming that at some point in the near future they're going to come back to Revelations, which turns out to be not the case. Because after Revelations 1 was finished and Revelations 2 was finished, they never came back to Revelations. So it's ignorance on their part, or hubris on their part, to assume that Revelations will even be good enough to be considered to continue. I didn't know that Jessica was the only good thing about it. Jessica is that she was double agent, or she was working for FBC. That's about the only thing that surprised me. Everything else was predictable. I knew Redmond was a bad guy from the jump. I knew O'Brien was an asshole. I knew Morgan wasn't who he was, trying to be. I knew Jill and Chris are always who they are, and I knew Parker was always going to be the Barry Barton of the crew. If you played enough Resident Evil games, you kind of figure where certain people were going to be placed. The only people I didn't know about was Jessica and the dumping duo, because the dumping duo weren't needed in the game, and Jessica is about the only person that's on the unpredictability. Everybody else was Claire's crystal. So there was no surprise with me and O'Brien. I kind of knew he was a bad guy from the beginning, but at the same time I knew he was a good guy as well. Kind of figured or Morgan was going to be bad based on everything that was going on. So there's nothing in the story really surprised me other than Jessica. Maybe some of what O'Brien did in order to fool the people such as Jill and Chris, but that's it. Maybe. About maybe two things in the entire damn game. O'Brien trying to fool Jill and Chris and Jessica. The story wasn't that complicated, but it's still slightly better than Rev 2. And yeah, I'm coming to a conclusion here. I'm done. Probably won't come back to this game like ever again. If I do, it has to be related to nostalgia if they make a Rev 3. That's the only reason I will ever come back to Rev 1, if they make a Rev 3. So that's why I say Rev 2 is just slightly better. Slightly better with mechanics, slightly better with everything, with the character interactions, slightly better with the bad guy's personal goal, and so on and so forth. And slightly better boss fights as well in Rev 2. This, however, the story is about the only thing that's better than Rev 2. If it wasn't for the story in Rev 1, I would say Rev 2 completely knocks Rev 1 out of the water. Story-wise, this is better than Code Veronica. Story-wise. I played both the stories. Story-wise, this is better than Code Veronica. Gameplay, fun factor-wise, it's not better than Code Veronica or Rev 2. It felt very stiff. And gameplay has to do with many things as well. It has to do with where you're going, where you get into, type of boss you're fighting, type of objective you have to do, type of story that's going on, locations and settings, type of weapons you're using, all things related to fun factor. So when people are just paying attention to the story, they're not paying attention to the other thing to add towards the fun factor. If I'm wrong with regards to Revelations, then Revelations 1 is above Code V, and Code V is above Rev 2. No matter how you do it, how you switch it before, Code V falls in between Rev 1 and Rev 2, based on my experience and gameplay and enjoyability. So since I do enjoy Rev 2 better than Rev 1, logical sense as a game in total, looking at all of them, all three of them, Rev 1, Code V, Rev 2, in total, everything and every experience I had, fun factor, how I felt about the game afterwards, story and everything included, backdrops, included attachments, and New Game Plus. Um, I would have to go with Rev 2. Still better than Code V, um, and still better than Rev 1. Because there are certain things in Code V are just superior to that of Revelations 1 and Revelations 2. But fun factor, the mechanics of Revelations 2 is just better than Revelations 1. So fun factor, it just beats Revelations 1 by just 3 or 4 points. So common sense and logical, including the story, considering all, even the devils in the details, I have to go with what makes sense. The only thing at the end that matters is the fun factor. And I had more fun playing Code V, watching Wesker show up to the party, fighting uh, Alexia, playing as Claire, going through underground tunnel, fighting giant spiders, going to different facilities, fighting worms. I had more fun with those locations missions than I did with Revelations 1. About the only fun I had with Revelations 1 was the underwater scene, going and swimming and fighting things underwater. If it wasn't for that, and that alone, Revelations 1, the mechanics and the locations are inferior to that of 2. If it wasn't for the underwater battles or being on a ship, yeah, so that's my thought with regards to Revelations 1. Slightly below Rev 2, but slightly above Code Veronica. But Code Veronica is slightly better fun factor game than Rev 1 is. Even though the story of Rev 1 is better than Rev 2 and Code Veronica. So that's how I'm going to do it. If you want to say what's a better game, Rev 1, Rev 2, or Code V, you must ask the person, are you talking about story or you're talking about fun factor? Well, if the person say I'm talking about everything, well, everything included, um, then it is Rev 2 and Code V with everything included. If it's just a story, then it will always be Rev 1. So if someone goes and plays the game, Revelations 1, and say, no, you guys were totally wrong, I really enjoyed Revelations 1 in comparison to Revelations 2 and Code Veronica, then that person was only paying attention to the story more than anything. They were playing a story-based game, like most Resident Evil game. But Resident Evil games aren't all story-based. They're story-based and mechanics as well. Like I said, Rev 1 story is about the only thing that kept it alive. Without the story, it would go right in the trash.